Welcome to Webinar Wednesday. Today we have a great presentation for you featuring Larry Wynn, CEO and CTO of Summit Imaging. Larry will educate the audience on the use and maintenance activities associated with ultrasound transducers. Through demonstration and analysis, Larry will assist users in increasing the life of their equipment to better serve patients. Webinar Wednesday would like to thank our sponsor, Summit Imaging. Summit Imaging is a technology-enabled service organization that focuses on repairs and services of ultrasound and mammography equipment. Summit Imaging can quickly address specific technical issues and needs based on a foundation of outstanding rapid customer service. Their philosophy is simple: make their customers heroes. Visit mysummitimaging.com for more information. Let's give one lucky attendee the opportunity to win a Webinar Wednesday Webinar t-shirt by telling us in what city and state the Summit Imaging headquarters is located. You can answer now using the questions feature on your webinar dashboard. A couple of reminders before we get started. Registration is now open for MD Expo in Tampa this November. Visit mdexposhow.com to learn more about this one-of-a-kind conference, where you can network with peers, earn CE credits, and learn the latest technology and advances in HTM. Also, for more exciting news, our December HTM Mixer will be in Nashville, Tennessee on December 9th and 10th. Please visit htmmixer.com for more details on this event. All right, today's webinar is eligible for one continuing education credit from the ACI. You can obtain your CE certificate by completing the post-webinar survey. More details on this at the end of today's webinar. We will wrap up today's presentation with a live Q&A. You can submit your questions anytime during the webinar by using your webinar dashboard. We will get through as many attendee questions as time allows. As I mentioned earlier, our speaker today is Larry Wynn. Larry, you may begin whenever you are ready.
Hi everyone, Larry Wynn, CEO at Summit Imaging, an ultrasound and mammography equipment support organization. And today we got a special video for you. We've had so many requests from our customers all over North America dealing with accidental damage that occurs to transducers. So what you guys were asking from us was, could you build a video that describes how these probes are getting damaged? Well, we've seen thousands of transducers from our repair services, and we have actually collected that data and here to show you kind of what occurs accidentally along the way during the life cycle of these transducers. And so the goal of today's video is to educate you and possibly share it with people beyond the HTM community, users of the equipment, to perhaps educate on what could happen that you would never even know that causes a significant number of failures that are absolutely preventable. And so that's what we're going to take you through today. We're going to demonstrate some probes getting dropped, getting hit against machines, and to help you lower that equipment downtime, maximize that uptime so you can better serve patients. And so we've actually created a life cycle. In this particular case is a T-probe. We're going to be talking about the life cycle of a T-probe because these take a lot of abuse. They're in a very harsh environment. They go down the esophagus for a scan of the heart. No ribs in the way. Absolute beautiful image for doctors to use. And then the sterilization piece where they're sitting in some sort of acidic chemical to actually sterilize the transducer. We'll step through that life cycle, and in addition to that we have kind of a standard probe here that not all phases are applicable. However, the goal of protecting the equipment and preventing accidents along the way to prevent damage is very similar in nature. And so let's roll into our model. And so right now, We're going to begin with storage. Where is your T-probe stored? We're going to move on to transport vulnerabilities. We'll then go into an operating room or clinical use of a transducer when it's being used. Talk about those risks, what we're seeing happening with these probes that are damaged coming back to us. Transport to central processing, the centralized area where all the equipment of clinical use kind of goes as they travel in and out of rooms in a hospital. Decontamination, which is just kind of getting all of the debris off of these transducers. We actually add in inspection and testing. You want to do that right after decontamination to look for some certain things. We'll dive into what you should be looking for. Disinfection, which is the sterilization, really sterilizing this probe to get it ready for the next patient. And transport back to storage, which are similar vulnerabilities as transporting it to the OR or for clinical use. And then back to storage. And so this is the life of a transducer. It just keeps going over and over and over. And for healthcare facilities and hospitals out there, the goal is to get as many cycles as we can to serve as many patients and help them as much as we can. Now, in the event that a probe is damaged, this cycle can stop. And what we can do is assess what that failure could be, what that damage has occurred, and then getting a new piece of equipment, or perhaps using a repair alternative with a quick turnaround to reintroduce this asset to continue on this life cycle and lowering your costs at the same time. All right, I'm back. I got my scrubs on. I wanted to demonstrate being, a healthcare staff member who would be handling transducers throughout this life cycle process. And we're going to start with the first phase, which is after storage. There's some nice storage options for you. We'll get to that at the end, but we're going to start here at transport. And at transport, there's a couple of vulnerabilities here that we often see where damage occurs on probes. And let's just start with the obvious T-probe because these are actually damaged quite often when they're being transported. Now, when we're actually in hospitals helping kind of assess these kinds of problems or deploying our evaluations to show the hospital what could we do differently to help prevent damage, this probe is so long that it actually has a lot of force if it's swung around. And the part you want to protect the most is the tip. There are so many microelectronics in here with a very sensitive crystal that even the slightest bang on a surface will actually crack it enough to where the probe needs to be repaired or may need to be completely replaced. And so what we've seen is everything from hospital employees trying to carry it like this, which we don't recommend because you don't want this touching you, especially after it just came out of surgery or if it just got used on a patient. You really don't want this entire insertion tube touching you at that point without the proper protective gear. We've seen people roll them up with the tip right here, and as they're walking around, the tip starts banging, as you can hear right now, on this metal casing here. We've even seen customers walking like this, and then the tip bangs on the can of the transducer. So what do we recommend? We recommend getting a proper transport box for this. We've seen some nice totes. But if you really have to, we really recommend coiling up, grabbing the handle, coiling up the cable, and now holding this right underneath the tip with some gloves. And this is a way to control all the heavy parts of this transducer because the heavy parts are what's going to hit things, especially protecting this tip. So now you have full control of the tip of the transducer. You have control of the handle, and then this connector with a short leash here with your left hand or right hand will not swing around and bang things, especially keeping it away from the most sensitive part of the transducer, which is the T-probe tip with the crystal on it. So we recommend carrying it in a way where you can control it with the idea that things aren't going to be swinging around unnecessarily, because if you carry it like this, you can risk banging it into a table. Another one is actually banging it into side of doors as you're going in and out of rooms. So as we're transporting a T-probe, it's important to protect the tip because oftentimes accidental damage occurs when just transporting this probe around. And for example here, door jams are a T-probe's worst nightmare. Now, that impact on the tip was completely on the tip against a metal door frame, and that will cause enough impact to damage all the microelectronics inside the head of the T-probe. So now we got a standard probe, just a cardiac sector transducer, and we recommend the same thing, coiling it up, holding the can in one hand, holding the transducer in the other. The difference is the crystal is right on top instead of kind of facing forward like the T-probe, but the same issues apply, is that you want to protect this crystal, especially from hitting the can. And the issue, sometimes when we see totes being used with T-probes and standard probes, is that they go into a box and then the crystal is next to the connector. And as people walk down the hall, the crystal starts banging onto the connector and therefore damaging that crystal, because this connector is full metal and this just has a rubber lens covering a ceramic crystal that's very fragile. So be careful as you're transporting them. Keep these two components away from each other because they're both heavy. They will slide into each other. And then in addition, this is what's going to get damaged, and this is what's going to cause your equipment downtime because now the probe's no longer functioning. All right, now let's talk about the next phase, which is in the operating room. And what we've found, we've actually joined a lot of procedures just to observe how the equipment's being used, but more importantly, what's being used around it environmentally that could be inducing failures on T-probes and other standard probes as well. But let's just talk about T-probes. And we have some surgical tools here. We have a scalpel, scissors, other types of things that are all extraordinarily sharp. And one thing is, when the technicians are prepping for a procedure, we've seen these sharp tools right next to the transducer on the table. Well, the construction of this T-probe is a bending rubber that allows this transducer to articulate. And these sharp tools are very sharp to a degree where it will cause